Hi everybody, thanks for coming back and joining me again. Today I want to speak about the Greek island, specifically Rhodes, my favorite Greek island, and this is how I got there. I came via cruise ship, which is the most convenient way to hit a bunch of the islands, and the cruise ship docks in Mandrake Harbor. I'm going to put a shout out and recommend Celestial Cruises. It's an older boat, built in the 80s, has a little bit bigger cabins and other amenities on the boat, not quite so crowded, didn't hold as many people, so rather nice boat. Anyway, we reached the harbor that morning and it's very convenient. Mandrake Harbor is quite close, easy car ride via Uber, etc. over to Ellie Beach, E-L-L-I, which is a pebble beach. Has all the amenities, bars, taverns, restaurants, sun loungers that you can hire, and they have little mats spread out over the rocks so that you're not going to get a stone bruise, etc. And then they have a giant diving platform off the coast. So really the greatest asset though is the very clear, delightfully refreshing Aegean Sea. Now, I had a good time hanging out there with my wife and the children for a while, but after some time the wanderlust struck me and I walked across the road to the old town of Rhodes, the old city. This was built by, now check out this name, it's a long one, the Order of the Knights of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem. So this was a medieval knights order from the time of the Crusades. So these guys and the more famous Knights Templars were the two orders of knights that protected the pilgrims coming into Jerusalem and the Holy Land during the time of the Crusades when they were overrun by the Ottomans. The Knights Hospitallers repaired to the island of Rhodes and built this fortress between about 1309 and inhabited it up until about 1523, so they were continuously adding on and building it. Great place to explore. They're very clever. The island of Rhodes has a natural aquifer underneath that I learned from some people at this tavern where I stopped in and had this beer. They gave me this glass. It's pretty cool. If you can see, it says Rhodes on it, and see it's got the crosses reminiscent of the Crusaders, etc. So pretty cool souvenir. And they were a wealth of information in this little taverna within the city walls there. So obviously the aquifer gave the inhabitants of the city an advantage in that they could withhold a siege for a long time, and sure enough they were besieged by Suleiman the Magnificent, emperor of the Ottoman Empire, and eventually defeated about 1523. So the Knights Hospitallers fared better than the Knights Templars. The Knights Hospitallers wound up moving over to Malta and built a similar fortress there. The poor old Knights Templars, they had come out of the Holy Land, wound up in France, ran afoul of King Philip IV of France, and he accused them of all sorts of dastardly things, heresy, etc., and arrested a bunch of them on Friday the 13th, which is why Friday the 13th to this day is regarded as unlucky. Subsequently, a bunch of the Templars were executed. So, anyway, the old town, fascinating old architecture dating back to medieval times, lots of towers, turrets, twists and turns, hidden alleyways, etc. One of the more interesting things is that the knights that made up this order, they were all volunteers, so they came from all over Europe and then from different countries, etc. So they were divided into langues, L-A-N-G-U-E-S, based on the Latin word from which we derive the Spanish word lingua for tongue, or linguistic for language, or language in English for language. So they were divided up by those that spoke the common language, and then you can see these, if you will, giant barracks with a symbol or a seal of which country was there, like those that spoke Spanish, those that spoke French, German, English, etc. So throughout the old town you find some excellent shopping, some really cool souvenirs, lots of good tile work. I bought this interesting tile which has actually a Templar cross. That's a 8-pointed cross, but it was from the same time period, came out of the time of the Crusades. So yes, rather fascinating artifact for me. Anyway, so When we'd first arrived at the harbor that day, we had gotten on a tour bus that had been arranged through the cruise ship, and we took a ride up to the town Lindos and its old Acropolis. I learned from the tour guide that Acropolis is really a compound word, polos meaning city, acro meaning the edge of, and sure enough, the Acropolis, which was a pagan temple, was built at the top of a cliff on the edge of the city. So the old town of Lindos, I recognize many parts of it, as well as the old city of Rhodes, from the movie The Guns of Navarone, filmed in 1962. Now this was a blockbuster and had enormous Hollywood star power from the time. David Niven, Gregory Peck, Anthony Quinn, Anthony Quayle, Sir Stanley Baker, Irene Pappas, etc. Fantastic film. And so again and again, the tour guide and I talked about different sites there. I'd asked him, was this in the movie? And he said yes. And then there's lots of the movie that features the Acropolis. Now, the bus rode over to Lindos, and you walk downhill to Lindos, then you hike way up a steep hill to get to the Acropolis. They have some donkeys for hire, and some people opted for that. It's quite a trek up there. When you're walking up to the Acropolis, if you look out to the southern side, you'll see the Bay of St. Paul. Now, in the book of Acts, it's mentioned that the Apostle Paul had a ship that he was traveling upon put into Rhodes due to a storm, and this is where traditionally the ship came ashore. Now, if you look in the other direction, there's the Bay of Lindos, an excellent beach. I'll need to look down how to pronounce it, Megalia Paralia. I was fortunate enough to go swimming there. So what wound up happening is I spoke to the guide as we were getting ready to head down from the Acropolis, and he was going to give some time for people to shop in the town. And I had a narrow window of opportunity where I could scurry down first and go swimming and then meet them back at the tour bus. So figuring that variety being the spice of life, and you only get some opportunities once, I availed myself of the chance, and then I made my way down to the beach, dodged my way through the various sun loungers and umbrellas, and had a great swim, and then back to the tour bus. So subsequently, they brought us back, and we toured the old city that I'd mentioned earlier, and then later on I was able to go on out to the beach with the wife and children. We had a great time. So what I would like to do is recommend that you go try out Rhodes and check it out. I would think it would be very suitable for an extended vacation because of the excellent beaches, the very friendly people, the very good cuisine, and the weather was fantastic when we were there in the summer, very sunny, and there was a light breeze from offshore, so it wasn't as hot as certain other parts on the mainland of Greece during the summer. So I hope you'll consider it and maybe take a trip out there to Rhodes, and I hope also that you'll consider Celestial Cruises. We were quite pleased with them. I want to make sure that I've not left anything out. I think I left out one important aspect from ancient history. The island of Rhodes, if you look it up on the internet, you might read about one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, which was the Colossus statue, which was to the pagan deity Helios, the sun god. And the Colossus was about 100 feet high and spanned the harbor. That's the same Mandrake harbor. Unfortunately, there's not any remnants of it. It was destroyed in an earthquake around about maybe 290 BC, and then it was made out of bronze, and so subsequently there were salvage efforts which removed all the bronze from the seashore and the undersea area where it had collapsed. But yes, indeed, was one of the monuments of the ancient world. So if you're interested in seeing some really cool scenes of what Lindos, the Acropolis, and the old city with its fortifications look like, I would recommend checking out the 1962 movie The Guns of Navarone, which has now been colorized and is pretty exciting World War II era film. has a very young Richard Harris in it. That's another famous actor in it. Lots of star power. The great thing about that movie is it not only is a good adventure tale, but it really shows a lot of the architecture of the old city of Rhodes. And the breakwater at Mandrake Harbor, some of that dates all the way back to the time of the Crusades and the Knights Hospitallers. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope that you will get the opportunity to visit Rhodes. I think you'll probably enjoy it as much as I did. Hope you have a great day and pleasant journeys.